If you guys haven't noticed by now, and I know there's quite a few eagle-eye viewers on this channel, is that these War Doctor audio reviews are actually being filmed around a similar time to each other. Some of them are on the same day, but they're around early August 2021 for the first five reviews of these War Doctor box sets. But from the weather outside, it's really wet. It's let me just show you. It's tipping it down with rain. From that, you would actually believe this video was recorded around November, December time, whenever these reviews go out. But no, it's early August. It's the 9th of August at time recording this particular review, and it's very wet. But in all honesty, if I didn't tell you this video was recorded in August, or you hadn't picked up on that, you wouldn't be able to tell. Not with this weather, anyway. Okay, on to Casualties of War. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of the 4th Doctor Who The War Doctor audio box set from Big Finish Productions, The War Doctor Casualties of War, which is the 4th and final release to star John Hurt as the War Doctor. And it's the 4th of the War Doctor range, but as you are aware, it will not be the last War Doctor audio release. So, Casualties of War. Now, whilst I did say that the 3rd box set, Agents of Chaos, is the best, I think I might have to change that. I think Agents of Chaos is probably my favourite box set, but Casualties of War is probably objectively the best, or at least of the first 4 ones with John Hurt. But anyway, Casualties of War. What makes this audio series so good? What makes it objectively the best series? Well, let's take a look. The main story arc for Casualties of War, and I've already taken the CDs out, is that the War Doctor and Cardinal Illustria, played by John Hurt and Jacqueline Pearce, are they're trapped on this space station away from Gallifrey, where they are being handed over to the Daleks by the people of the space station in order for them not to be exterminated. However, being Daleks, the Daleks just killed them anyway. But the Doctor and Australia land on this planet, and they have to try and warn people about the Daleks coming after being informed about it by this war reporter named Chandel. And then they realise, actually, it's because of us that the Daleks are coming, so we have to somehow stop the Daleks from getting here. Then they have to try and get themselves back to Gallifrey, whilst also trying to fight off the Daleks and trying to get to other people, persuade other people to join them in the battle against the Daleks, who are, by the way, developing this weapon that will ensure that they win the Time War, that it will erase the Time Lords from existence, and they plan to use it on Gallifrey, and plan to invade Gallifrey or something along those lines, and at least use this to manipulate the Time Lords and eventually conquer the Time Lords and win the Time War. Yeah, this box set follows more in the lines of what the second box set was, where there was sort of a 3-stage plan, but it doesn't feel like there's a first story and then there's a 2-part story afterwards, where the first one was kind of like a prologue to the other two, like the first and third box sets felt like. FYI, Fortune and Fire are 3 completely separate standalone stories. Pretty Lies is undoubtedly my favourite story of this box set. It's a really great adventure. I like Chandel as a character. He's quite a young upstart, well, not upstart, but young, hoping for success and achievement reporter. He's quite a fun guy, and he gets on the Doctor industry, his nerves. But he just makes the interactions so fun. He's such a great guy. I also really like Editor, the robot he has that has the sends off the footage, etc. That's a fun character, and also Sarah, the character who's like the boss of the village they go to on the planet. She's a great character as well, and I really like the story as it goes along with the Doctor in Australia trying to save these people, and Australia throughout this box set is starting to be a bit more compassionate towards other people she meets and gets more involved in trying to stop the Daleks and persuading other people to get on their side. So she's starting to see the Doctor's point of view, whilst also still being Cardinal Illustria. The character doesn't really change too much. But throughout this series of audios, as well as parts of the third box set, she has been developing a little bit. She has been starting to see stuff from the Doctor's point of view and starting to understand stuff. Even though she doesn't completely change, she's starting to understand a bit more, and I think that works really well with the character, and it makes her a great supporting character. And technically, in this box set, she is the companion of the War Doctor. She was basically sort of an ally slash boss slash sometimes villain in the previous 3 box sets, but now she's technically a companion, I suppose, for a bit. And considering we've got an old companion coming back later in this box set, that's going to be an interesting dynamic. But yeah, I think Pretty Lies is a really great story to show the War Doctor and Illustria's interactions with each other off Gallifrey, off mission. They're a long way from home, and they're trying to get back. They have no means of transport. They have to try and help Chandel out if they want to leave the planet, or try and find something on a ship or something on the planet. And of course, they have to try and protect the people of the planets from being exterminated by the Daleks. And it's just a really great story overall. It picks up nicely from where the last story, Eye of Harmony, left off, where the Doctor and Illustria were stranded at the other end of the universe, and there were Daleks on the way. It picks off nicely from that, and it's just a really great story. My only kind of personal kind of gripe is that the planet does get destroyed by the Daleks at the end, but that is a consequence of the character's actions throughout the story, and it does not get ignored. It does get referenced in the next story as well. Also, it's Daleks doing Dalek stuff, so I suppose I can forgive it because it is referenced in the next story, and the Doctor and Illustria mention it, and to them, they feel like even though we did protect this planet for a bit, the Daleks would then come along and destroy it anyway after we had gone, and we don't want that happening to other planets. So Pretty Lies is basically a pretty perfect way to set up this series, and it's a really great start. I also like how the Doctor actually is able to defeat the Daleks in the end, and by making a video about himself, and he and Chandel are kind of twisting his words and stuff, like Chandel had done with some video footage of the Doctor he captured a little bit earlier. It's pretty interesting, and I like how it takes the subject of journalism and fake news and manipulating what people have said into something people want to hear, and also works really well as the way to stop the Daleks in the end, or at least partly stop the Daleks in the end. And yeah, it works really well with this story. I really enjoyed Pretty Lies. I also liked the Lady of Obsidian. This was also a pretty interesting story. This story reintroduces Leela, and I believe it's from Leela's point of view, this probably takes place after Gallifrey Time War 1, which is the name of the 9th Gallifrey audio series and the first of the ones taking place during the Time War. And from what I know of that series, Leela does get lost or something, so I suppose from her point of view, this story kind of picks off where that one left off. Although that would be a prequel to this story, because that came out in late 2017 or in 2018, whilst this one was early 2017. But hey, it's a really great story to reintroduce Leela into the series, and also has an interesting way because of what happened to her in the story prior to the events of this story. Is that in a battle she was believed to have been lost and killed, but instead of being what the Daleks had tried to do was erase her from time, but what actually happened is she survived, but now she experiences memories of lives that she didn't lead, and she doesn't know which one is real until the end, where the Doctor is able to help her fix that. Meanwhile, she has been leading a resistance group in the Obsidian cluster against these undead, unliving creature things, which serve as our secondary antagonists for this story, a bit like the Talians in the first box set. However, I think these creatures are a bit more interesting because the fact that they are unalive, as Leela puts it, I believe that's how she puts it anyway, the fact that they're unalive makes them a little bit more interesting as creatures. I mean, it's, as characters, as individual characters, there isn't really any specifically notable one, like the Talion leader himself in the first box set, but I believe that's his name was Tranos. But I think the Undead as a concept is a bit more interesting than the Talions, because the Talions I felt were just regular, grumpy, shouty men who just so happened to be fascists and were nowhere near as in much of a league as the Daleks. Whilst the Undead are a bit more of an interesting concept and idea, even if we don't really have many individuals who actually stand out. There's the leader of them, but I don't know. I don't really see him as much of a threatening villain on his own. The Undead altogether, they make a pretty formidable foe. I also really like the character Rosata Laxater. She's a really great supporting character in the story who helps the Doctor and Leela, and the interactions between the three characters, or two of the characters, are really fun and really enjoyable to listen. And Cardinal Alistria is on full political mode whilst also trying to fight off against the Daleks, and very authoritative figure when she's trying to convince the High Minister of this planet that there's Daleks coming, and also when the Time Lords do come to pick her up, she's like determined to stay and help stop the Daleks and protect the planet, as due to following the consequences of petty lies where the Daleks destroyed the previous planet they won. Alistria, as I mentioned, doesn't want that happening again, neither does the Doctor, and so she's staying with the Gallifreyan Task Force to try and fight off the Daleks. However, because they're only an escort group instead of a battle group, they're going to have to make do with what they've got, and eventually they send a signal out for reinforcements, and then the Doctor and company join them alongside reinforcements, which includes a cameo reappearance of Veclin, played by Beth Chalmers. Something I forgot to mention in my first review in Only the Monstrous is that Beth Chalmers puts on a kind of a snaky, slippery type of voice for the character in that box set, and sort of is a little bit in this time round, but there isn't as much Veclin in this box set. like one or two lines in one story as opposed to several lines in three. But I found Beth Chalmers' snaky, slippery voice, serpenty voice in the first box set to be a really great. A bit like with Helen Goldwyn and Honeysuckle Weeks' voices in the third box set, how they put their voices to their characters. It just works really well. In fact, I think Beth Chalmers' voice actually sounds a little bit sexy in the slippery, snake-like tone. And when she drops it a little bit, it still sounds really great here. So I'm looking forward to hearing more of her in the second Begins box set that'll be coming out at time of recording later this year, at time of this video coming out. Hopefully within a month or two, maybe. Depends when it goes out. It might, if it's delayed, it might even be this month. It might be last month. I don't know when this video comes out. Hopefully November, in which case it'll be next month. Anyway, but yeah, Lady of Obsidian. This is another great adventure, and it's written by Andrew Smith, who wrote The Eternity Cage, and alongside the fact that he writes the Shadow Squad in the next box set, which I've gone on record saying is my current favourite War Doctor story of the first 5 box sets. And Eternity Cage is my favourite of the first 4 box sets with John Hurt, and that's my second favourite overall. I think I can safely say that Andrew Smith is, in my opinion, the best writer of the War Doctor audios. This is probably my least favourite of his 3, but it's still cracking. It's still a really great adventure. I really enjoyed it. Oh, and for the record, Pretty Lies was written by Guy Adams. And for the writers of Agents of Chaos, I don't think I went through them. It's David Llewellyn for the Shadow Vortex, Andrew Smith for the Eternity Cage, blah, blah, and I Have Harmony by Ken Bentley. I went through the second box sets once in its review, and Nicholas Briggs wrote the entirety of Only the Monstrous, as well as the next story, the Enigma Dimension. And in my opinion, I don't think this is as good as The Heart of the Battle, but I think it is better than The Innocent and The Thousand Worlds, so making this my second favourite of the Nicholas Briggs written War Doctor audios. I do think it is weaker than the first 2 box sets' finales, and Fortune and Fires as well, but it's better than Eye of Harmony. It's not a disappointing conclusion. I'm not always able to follow this one, but I think it's a pretty great story. What happens is the Doctor Estrella and Leela get into the Doctor's TARDIS at the end of the previous story. The Doctor gets his TARDIS back in this one. Oh, and by the way, I should probably mention, by this point, that whole war criminal stuff from the second box set, you know, the main thing that was going on in this one, where the Doctor was deemed a war criminal at the end of the first story, and then that was the story arc for this box set. Completely gone by now. Just completely gone. I guess the stuff that happened in Agents of Chaos was enough for them to say, well, we like the guy again now. And they give him his TARDIS back in this story, and he and Australia and Leela go to Gallifrey, and they're kind of working together, etc. By this point, the whole war criminal stuff is just fucking forgotten about. Thank fuck. I hated that angle in the second box set. And I'm kind of glad that it was sort of dropped in the third box set and completely forgotten about by the fourth. Thank fuck. Anyway, the Enigma Dimension. This is probably the only one that's actually set on Gallifrey, or partly set on Gallifrey. There were some bits in the other stories, mainly some communications and talking stuff, but most of the story is either set on Gallifrey or on this Enigma, not quite planet, but it's sort of a mix of a planet and a space station. Let's call it a space station because it's like the Crucible from the Stolen Earth Journey's End. It's a planet-sized space station. So in this story, there's this sort of pyramid-shaped space station that's supposedly near Gallifrey. It's coming towards Gallifrey. It doesn't show up on the instruments and stuff, but people can still see it. And somehow Daleks are getting into the capital and into the Panopticon. And they're trying to invade the Gallifrey. However, it turns out what's actually happening is that they've got this creature called the Enigma, and they're trying to disperse it between its dimension and the Daleks and Time Lords dimensions, and they're trying to use the Enigma to try and wipe out the Time Lords and erase them from history. And the Doctor, Leela, and Alistria sort of get caught up in this. And Leela, with her warrior instincts and what she had to go through prior to the events of the previous story, is sort of able to communicate with the Enigma and able to sense it and able to talk with it. So that's why the Enigma sounds like Louise Jameson, by the way, because it's either talking through Leela or it's gotten her voice pattern in order to talk to everybody else. And it's actually a pretty interesting idea. It's got with the Daleks using this interdimensional creature in order to erase the Time Lords from history, whilst also trying to invade Gallifrey, or at least make it seem that they're invading Gallifrey to put the Time Lords on red alert. Basically, cause a lot of red herrings and false alarms. This is a pretty great story and wraps up this box set with a nice bow. I think it might be my least favourite of the three, but that's just showing how good the other two were. But it's still a really good story, a pretty great way to wrap up the series, and it's a great final story for the War Doctor chronologically in audio form. It's the last audio story chronologically, and it's a pretty great one to end on. It's a great way for John Hurt to go out on as well. This is also Cardinal Illustria's last appearance in the War Doctor stories so far, although she would be in the first 8th Doctor Time War box set. But sadly, Jacqueline Pearce would also pass away after doing that one, so that would be her last box set. And so stories set between the end of 8th Doctor Time War 1 and the War Doctor box set 1 would be with other characters, and she'd be in the background. Commodore Tamazan certainly seems like a Lystra fill-in role, certainly in War Doctor Begins, Fortune and Fire. But yeah, for the final John Hurt War Doctor audio and the final Cardinal Illustrilia audio in the War Doctor series, it's a great story. I don't enjoy it as much as the first two in this box set, but it's definitely a great finale to the War Doctor series with John Hurt. Scoring these stories, I wasn't initially sure what to give them, but I think I would give Pretty Lies. I was going to give this a 9, but I think considering the way it works into the story and how everything works out really well, I think I'm going to promote it to 10 out of 10. I think this is a really great one, and I think I would say it's my third favourite of the War Doctor audios overall, second favourite of the ones with John Hurt. I would give the Lady of Obsidian a 9 out of 10. This is another really great audio of the series, and I would also give the Enigma Machine a 9 out of 10 as well. There are some times where I'm not always able to follow it, but it's a pretty great ending. And doing a quick ranking of the 3 stories, number 3 would be the Enigma Dimension, number 2 would be the Lady of Obsidian, and number 1 would be Pretty Lies. And Casualties of War overall score would be a 10, a 9, and a 9. So that would be 28 out of 30, which will make it 9 out of 10. So actually, yeah, this is the best box set. And I think I would also take it above the War Doctor Forged in Fire. And until today, I was actually thinking this one was my favourite box set, but no, I think I would give it to Casualties of War. And that would top Agents of Chaos as well. So Casualties of War is the best War Doctor box set released so far. And it makes a lot of sense because these are the last 3 audios to feature John Hurt as the War Doctor, and it's the penultimate 3 stories to feature Jacqueline Pearce as Cardinal Illustria, with her last 4 being, well, I think 3 of the 4 anyway. Last 3 being 3 of the 4 Eighth Doctor Time War 1 box set stories, which Matt has reviewed on this channel back in 2018, I believe it was. So go and check that one out. But yeah, Illustria is in at least 3 of the 4 stories of that box set, so those will be her last ones before Jacqueline Pearce sadly passed away. So yeah, considering this is John Hurt's last box set and Jacqueline Pearce's penultimate box set, it's no wonder that they went out on a high, even if they didn't expect either of that to happen. And there's a lovely tribute to John Hurt. I'm not sure if it's on any of the discs, but certainly on the download version, you can check out a tribute to Sir John Hurt, where people at Big Finish talk about him, working with him, seeing him in films and television and stuff. And there's the trailers for the War Doctor box sets, and also The Invisible Man, which he also did for Big Finish. So yeah, it's worth checking out that tribute. And yeah, this was a really great way for John Hurt to go out on. And I think if he was alive when the box set was released, I think he'd be proud of it. So Sir John Hurt and Jacqueline Pearce, if you're watching this, you made a cracking final box set in the War Doctor audio series. Well done. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And that would be it for the War Doctor audios. Until a certain beautiful Jonathan Carley was cast in the role of the War Doctor for a new set of War Doctor audio prequels, The War Doctor Begins. And we will be taking a look at the first of these box sets next time, Forged in Fire. And soon we'll be coming up to the release of the second box set, Warmonger, depending when these reviews come out. And that will follow after Forged in Fire. So until next time, thank you so much for watching this review of the final John Hurt War Doctor audio box set, and I shall see you guys next time for the first Jonathan Carley War Doctor box set, The War Doctor Begins, Forged in Fire. Until then, or whatever else comes up in the future, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.